Good afternoon. I am here for an interview with Speaker of the National Assembly, the Honorable Anthony Michael Perkins. Today we are here basically to speak about an incident that took place in the National Assembly yesterday, July 11th, 2017, when the Honorable Conris Maynard, the Member of Parliament for constituency number 3, was named and suspended from the hallowed chamber. If we can recall, the Honorable Conris Maynard was asked to withdraw from the Parliament on May 23rd of this year. Now he's been asked to, well, he was suspended and he was named and suspended. And so therefore, we want to know what is the difference between him being asked to withdraw and this time around being named and suspended. However, for both incidents, the Honorable Conris Maynard was asked to leave the chamber for gross disrespect to the chair. Today I have with me the Honorable Speaker to give some explanation as to what took place and to shed light on the differences between what it means to withdraw and what it means to be named and suspended. Honorable Speaker.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Williams. It's a pleasure to be here once again so I can explain to the public at large the happenings and the proceedings of our Parliament. You have clearly described what happened in the past, and at yesterday's sitting, the main difference is that the member was was firstly named. And once a member is named, it carries an automatic suspension. The first time that a member is named, there's a 5-day suspension, 5 days after the sitting. So in this case, the suspension is ongoing. If that same member is named again in the future, the second time around, then it carries a 10-day suspension. If it happens a third time, the member could be expelled from Parliament for the rest of the session. Session meaning whatever time remains in the 5-year period, if the session lasts that long. So it's a very serious offense or serious disciplinary action that the Speaker can take. I think it's only fitting, though, that I explain to the public what led to that. And it was a case where the House was on its adjournment. On the adjournment, members are allowed to speak, but by tradition, by custom, members are only allowed, and realize I use the word allowed because it's the Speaker's discretion to allow a member to speak on the adjournment. And as per usual, I allowed members to speak, and they'll usually speak, pleasantries, I like to say, congratulatory messages, and of course, condolences, as the case may be. And the honorable member rose to his feet, and he gave some congratulatory messages to what I can recall, it seems like some of his constituents or students within his constituency, which was quite in order, and that's what the adjournment is for. But then he moved on to what I realized would have been something potentially controversial, and well, even if it did not get to the point of controversy, he attempted to speak to issues that were already discussed in Parliament earlier that day, which is clearly not allowed. That is out of order. You cannot raise matters that were discussed and finalized and settled in Parliament earlier that day. And I want to make this point because it is very instructive that I do. So, the Honourable Member Maynard, to the best of my knowledge, did not contribute to the earlier debate on any of the three bills that day. I'm subject to correction, but I don't recall him contributing, irrespective though, whether he contributed or not. He had left Parliament early in the afternoon, but came back just before we moved to the adjournment. And when he spoke, again, he began with a congratulatory message on the adjournment, but in my mind, he sought to introduce something that may have ended up being controversial, or in the very least, he began to speak to matters that were discussed earlier in the day, which I disallowed. And as a matter of fact, I told him to resume his seat after he persisted in referring to matters like that. So his speech was cut short. I asked him to resume his seat, which is a disciplinary action. So that was the first step. Having resumed his seat and another member having risen to his seat to make his contribution, and I can recall it was the Honourable Prime Minister and member for St. Christopher 6 at that time, the Honourable Member for St. Christopher 3, Mr. Maynard, chose to disrupt the member while speaking and was protesting loudly against my decision for preventing him from speaking on the adjournment to the things he wanted to speak. And so I intervened at that time, and I said to the member for number 3, Mr. Maynard, that he was clearly out of order. And I was of the view that he came back to Parliament at that time to create confusion, to disrupt the Parliament, and it is because of the gravity of his disrespect and what he was attempting to do. I chose, given the authority that I have and the discretion that I have, and in this case, applying one of the rules of the House, which is found in section 49, to name him, because I found his behavior at that time to be grossly disorderly and totally disrespect, abject behavior in my mind. And so he was named, and once a member is named, there's a follow-up step where a minister of government is asked to move that the member be suspended, which was done.
What part in the standing orders is that? What section is
that? Would be section 49, and the specific naming of the member would be 49.3. The to trigger the suspension, that would be 49.4, where a minister would ask the House to move that the member be suspended. So those were the steps that were followed, and which resulted in the member being named and suspended.
So you say it's a 5-day suspension?
Yes, beginning today, the day after, the suspension is suspended for 5 days. Now, I know there might be the question, well, the House does not sit, or is not sitting, but it's 5 calendar days.
What if the House were to sit within those 5 calendar days? It means then that the MP suspended
would not have been allowed to participate in the sitting.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Now, the opposition was absent for the latter part of yesterday during the sitting of the National Assembly. They were not there for the wrap-up of the debates, and the Honourable Senator Nigel Carty and the MP for constituency number 3, the Honourable Conris Maynard, they returned for the adjournment. It seems as though they came specifically for the adjournment to make certain announcements. Am I correct in saying that, Speaker?
I think you have described what happened correctly, because I do recall the opposition members not being there for the wrap-up of the third bill, the Honourable Maynard and the Honourable Carty would have returned just when the last presenter was wrapping up the final bill for the day. I believe that is what happened. But they were absent for a period of time leading up to the wrap-up of the final bill of the day. Yes.
No, we heard something coming up again, which has basically been the, appears to be the meat of the matter for the opposition, in which MP Maynard, he didn't come out and say it, but his words, he was accusing you of bias and saying that you were giving special protection to the member for number 7, who happens to be the Prime Minister.
I've heard the complaint, I've heard the criticism, and my response has been and will continue to be that I am of the view that my decisions and rulings in the House are sounded, or they're rooted rather, in the rules, the standing orders of the House. And if any member is aggrieved or feel that he has a difficulty with any of my rulings, that member is free to come back to the House and place before the House what we call a substantive motion. And we would be willing to discuss and debate that particular ruling. And I've said before, and I will say again, the Speaker could be found, based on the debate, to have erred. So it's a level playing field. There is the opportunity for members to challenge the Speaker. And I know that is something that's been said out there, which is totally and absolutely not true. The Speaker's rulings can be challenged, but it must be done in a proper way and in accordance with the standing orders of our National Assembly.
Would you agree with me that the last 2 sittings of Parliament have gone a little bit differently, in which there was participation for members of the opposition and so on, including yesterday's sitting of the National Assembly, which had relatively gone smoothly until close to the end, when the MP Maynard started with this thing?
I agree with you completely, Mr. Williams. I was of the view up to that point yesterday that we were having, or we did have up to that point, a decent, robust debate. And that is why I was rather disappointed with the behavior of member for number St. Christopher 3, Mr. Maynard. I just thought it was just out of place, out of whack, and I thought it was deliberate. And that
he knows the rules of the House. You assume that he knows the rules of the House.
He should know the rules of the House. That's the most I can say on that.
And even if one doesn't know the rules of the House, you would think that they would be guided by the Speaker, who makes a ruling, because the Speaker has the authority within the Parliament to make a ruling. So you would be guided, and in terms you would be respectful and so on of the Speaker's position.
And that is all I ask for. The Speaker must rule and make rulings as he goes along. And of course, if a member has a problem, challenge the Speaker in the proper and legal way. It is as simple as that.
So what words would you have for the Honorable Conwys Maynard? I mean, I think he's the newest member, or the youngest member in the Parliament. What words would you have for him?
Well, my advice to him is to sit back, think about his position as a representative of the people, and do some reflection. Do some reflection, because this is not a game between a Speaker and a member. It's not a game. I think the rules are so clear, so pellucid, that no one member can, although I say it's not a game,
yes,
no one member can really win that sort of challenge to the speaker. He cannot win at that time. He may win if we are able to debate a challenge, and the House decide the speaker was wrong. But outside of that, the member should understand that the speaker has the authority. The speaker has wide-ranging discretion. And I've said this, and I will continue to say it, because I'm comforted by saying this, Mr. William. At the end of the day, irrespective of what takes place in our parliament, irrespective, it is the public who's going to judge all of us members in here. Because I'm a member too. The speaker is a member. Just for the benefit of our viewing and listening audience. The speaker is a member of parliament. So elected members, nominated members, and the speaker, it's the public who will judge each and every one of us.
What do you think that message that is being sent, especially to young people, for respect for authority?
Well, it's interesting you ask that question, because certain things have happened since I've been speaker in terms of comments that have been made to me on the street. Some of them not very nice comments. Some of them by persons who are in very prominent positions. And I will speak to them one of these days in this parliament, because the public has a right to know. And the public may be shocked by at least two persons so far who has said very offensive things to me, which took me by surprise and shock. But I would not mention them here. I will prefer to mention them in Parliament, because I think that's the place I should speak to them. They were reflecting on my job as a speaker, and so at the opportune time I will speak to such instances. But in answering your question directly as to what message is being sent and what are my thoughts on what people out there saying, including including children, I don't think it's a very good message that is being sent when members behave like that, especially disrespecting, authority, and it cannot be a good message. And then something must be missing, Mr. William. Something must be missing if none of my rulings, there's not been an instance where any of my rulings have been challenged. And so I must ask the question, why? Why hasn't a member who has a problem with any ruling I've made, why has that member not chosen to challenge it in the proper way?
It is my understanding that there was some challenge being made at the recently concluded Commonwealth Parliamentary Association opening ceremony by the leader of the opposition, who in his remarks sought to sort of impugn your character as Speaker of the House.
Yes, at that opening ceremony, I must say that I too was a bit taken aback by some of the comments made by the leader of the opposition at that opening ceremony, because I felt that was not the place for it. And I know there were certain representations made during the conference to put their case forward, I guess their case against me. But I can say here, based on the feedback that I got, that was totally rebuffed by all of the delegates there. And so I think it was unfortunate what was done, but I'll leave that right there.
Sure. Is there anything else you would like to say, Honorable Speaker?
Just to say that I've just gone past my first year in the office as Speaker of the Assembly, and at the close yesterday, I did thank the honourable members of this Parliament who 1 year ago, or a little over 1 year ago, reposed their confidence in me by electing me to the position, and I consider it a serious and a serious position, and I endeavour to do my best that I can in this position, and that my rulings and my presiding over this Parliament, our Parliament, would be fair and transparent.
Sure.
And that's my commitment to the National Assembly and to the people of St. Christopher and Nevis.
Sure. Well, Speaker, I want to congratulate you on your first year
Thank you.
Anniversary. We have been speaking with the Honourable Michael Perkins, who is Speaker of the National Assembly in St. Kitts and Nevis. He was shedding light on the incident that took place in the National Assembly yesterday, July 11, 2017, when the Honourable Member of Parliament for constituency number 3, Conris Maynard, was named and suspended from the Honourable House for gross disrespect to the chair. I am Les Roy Williams. Thank you for listening. Stay up to date with news, programs, and activities of the government with SKNIS. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. And watch our videos on YouTube. Connect with us today. SKNIS, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service.